So, welcome to Conversations with T, organic and down to earth conversations where we explore the field of perinatal and maternal health and the intersectionality of spirituality and psychology. I'm your host and your sister friend, Shatia Tee Owsley. In each episode, we will take a deep dive and listen to stories, insights, new research, and have meaningful conversations into the outstanding and sacred work of Black and Brown birth workers, spiritualists, and other holistic health professionals making tremendous impacts in the world of birth and women's overall health. Whether you're a parent, a birth worker, a maternal health professional, an herbalist, or a spiritualist, or maybe you're just curious to learn more about the world of birth and women's wellness from the lens of some dope Black and Brown wellness professionals, you have come to the right place. So grab your headphones, a warm drink, sit back, and let's vibe. Today, I am honored and I am so excited to introduce my sister friend, Miss Angie West Robinson. She is a holistic wellness advocate, a musician, a birth consultant, a life coach, and spiritual advisor. She was born in Germany and raised in New Orleans. And from adolescence, she discovered a passion for fine arts, African culture, and family development. Angie began her journey as a birth doula in 2011, and she has since completed several international birth center certification programs, such as birth assistance, childbirth education, maternity Reiki therapy, and placenta encapsulation, just to name a few, because I know it's a long list. It's a long list because we don't ever stop learning. She is also the founder and the creative director of Asabi Arts, formerly known as Asabi Birth Services, which aims to connect the sacred arts of birth, music, and healing through education and support. I'm so happy that you are here today and I get to share space and energy with you today.
I love you, sis. Same.
Yes.
Always enjoy the energy that you provide. I love it.
Oh, and I'm feeding off you too. Okay, you looking beautiful per usual, per usual.
Thank you.
But I know I read your bio, and that was just a little snippet of all the outstanding and amazing work that you are doing, and you continue to do, and you have done. But let's talk about your journey. How did you get here? Where did it all begin? Where is the start? And let's just vibe and let's just see where this conversation goes.
I love that question because people assume when you get into certain like kind of niche fields like childbirth, that it's just something that you were always destined to do.
Mhm.
We never think about stumbling upon it, which really was my story. I was really in my early 20s and I had never really encountered, interacted with childbirth directly. I never had those conversations with my mother about her experiences in labor. And so I was living in Atlanta. I was doing a YouTube search for something, and Spirit said, "You need to see this." And I came upon a video of this woman in the forest, naked in labor, and I watched her push out her child on a YouTube video. And it resonated with me so heavy. I think I cried all day long. And my fiance at the time, he was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I think I'm okay, but I think that there's something I'm supposed to do." And
Mm.
from that video, watching this woman just tussle in and work through this process alone
Mm.
was the most amazing thing I had ever witnessed. And so from that day forward, I just dove into doing my research. I then looked for doula training. I was like, how can I get my foot in the door? Do I need to
Mhm.
go to medical school? There was so much back research that I had to do, but birth work was really my calling at that point. I knew why I was so maternal. I knew why
Mhm.
I had that gift. So
Mm.
that was kind of my start. Of course, like you said, in your beautiful introduction, some of those certifications came later. Birth doula is how I started, but because I do love educating, I love teaching. And I
Mm.
found that a lot of our Black and Brown moms specifically, like myself, needed just the knowledge. We just
Mhm.
to have someone like you've opened this space for us today, just to talk about some of these, concepts and asking the questions. And so that's kind of where I kind of got comfortable was the education portion after doing and helping deliver so many babies. And
Mm-hmm.
then, you mentioned about spirituality, which I love that you do, because birth work is spiritual work. And
Mm-hmm.
so that connection, really, that day when I saw the birth, it was really for me a spiritual connection. It was like I felt the elevation that this woman was going through. And so throughout my journey from day one to now, I always approach birth, anything around motherhood, childbirth, and family development is still to me spiritual work. And so that's kind of where I've been all these years. It's just trying to implement that conversation and help people connect those dots.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with you. And when decided, hey, I'm going to pull the trigger on starting this channel, right? And starting this YouTube or just this podcast in a sense, an opportunity for us to have down to earth conversations, organic conversations that don't go over people's head, where they can just sit in the comfort of their home, but most importantly feel like, oh, I'm talking to my cousin, or who's a doula, or I'm talking to my cousin who's a lactation consultant. And it can be broken down in a way where people actually you can understand it. It's being explained in a way where people feel like, okay, people aren't talking just to me. They're not talking over me, but I can get information from this. I can understand this. And as we know, in this world of birth work, spiritual work, everything is connected, right? We are all interconnected and nothing is separate. And I think that is what we see a lot in Western medicine is compartmentalizing the symptoms from the root cause of what's actually happening and going on. And so you decided to take more of a holistic approach to birth and to wellness. And so what made you decide to take this approach instead of, saying, oh no, I'm going to go to medical school, or I'm going to go and seek out, more formal training in the sense of what people think that you should be when you're working in the more of the medical space?
I love that question because I think a lot of new women who want to enter into supporting women and knowing more about childbirth feel that they have to go that medical route. I'll
Mm-hmm.
say for me personally, it came from two spaces. For me, I have always been a little hippy dippy child. Like one of my sorority sisters, we recently got together and she said, Angie, I remember you was in all that natural stuff before it was trending. Like you were always like, oh, you have a headache? Take some peppermint oil. I've always naturally been pulled to wanting to find the root of it. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
even think it has to do with choosing holistic versus medical.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from my nature of how I think. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to get to the root. I want to know why. If I say
Mm-hmm.
my head hurt and you give me a pill to make me feel better, well, no, do I know why? Is there something I can do to prevent it next time? Is there
Mm-hmm.
something that I have the power to manipulate or understand? So I think that's just kind of the way that the creator made me.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing was at the time when I was introduced to birth work, I was a musician. I mean, I went to school to be a musician, be a vocalist. So
Mm-hmm.
I was never a real big fan of school. I'm just gonna say it, y'all. I love to learn.
Right.
Education is key. But I was like,
Right.
do I really want to go back to school for this for 4 or 5 years? And
Mm-hmm.
Spirit said, no, they need you now. Like, how can find a way to introduce yourself to what you want to do now?
Mm-hmm.
Take
Mm-hmm.
steps. And so anybody also who's listening to this show today, I would encourage them. It may not be something that you have to change your whole world. It may just
Mm-hmm.
be you putting your foot in the door and getting there. And since then,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, because I've worked so long holistically, 99 or 98% of my clients over what a 10 plus year span have all been natural vaginal births. I'm interested now I've been in the hospitals for so long to know the lingo,
Mm.
because now I want to be able to translate. I want to be able to
Right.
say, okay, this is what's going on. This
Mm-hmm.
these are what your doctor is going to basically present you as options. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a duality in it as well, but even my kids can tell you, I've always loved to know the root and how to naturally just be able to utilize what the creator has already put in place on earth for us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So when you are when clients seek you out, what just based off of your personality and what you offer, right? I'm assuming, I'm just gonna assume, right, that your consultations are in-depth consultations. We're gonna talk about all the different dimensions within your life, right? And how this either whether they're coming to you preconception or they're coming to you and they're already pregnant, right? And starting this process. What does that look like with you saying, hey, we're going to approach it. We got to get to the root of things. We have to talk about things because, like you say, birth is such a sacred process, right?
Yes.
It is a sacred journey, but so many people, even today, go into it not knowing what to expect. The YouTube videos are out there. You have social media, you have books, you have you have tons and tons of information. And to this point, it's like information overload, right? So some people go into it with rose-colored glasses, or they go into it and they just are like, I'm just gonna wing it and we just gonna see what's gonna happen, So how are those consultations with your clients?
I love it because it varies. So
Mm,
typically 30 minutes is what I allow free consultation just to do kind of a meet and greet
mm-hmm,
and ask the same questions in that time frame. I have had clients that have sought me out specifically because I was a woman of color. I
mm,
have had people seek me out because I have a spiritual background and they wanted to feel more connected to their labor. Maybe they've had trauma in their past.
mm-hmm.
I've had clients that have had stillbirths. I have VBAC clients. I have had such a spectrum. I've had women come and say, I want you to be my doula, but I think I want them drugs. I don't want to feel no pain. So you have
Right,
variety. And
right.
so one of the key questions that I always ask my clients is, how do you believe that I can support you?
Mm,
I have them close their eyes and I said, right now, it's your Labor Day. What are we looking at together? What do we see?
mm-hmm,
Are we at home? Are we at the hospital? Who's around us? And that's kind of an organic way for them to build what we call in birth committee a birth plan, right?
mm-hmm,
We're just
mm-hmm,
organically visioning without all the stresses, what does it look like for you?
mm-hmm.
I always then ask past experiences. Have you ever seen a baby come out of a woman?
Mm.
Sometimes doulas, we overlook that.
Right,
We assume like, oh yeah, I mean, she's a woman, so she knows.
right,
No,
right,
ma'am. No, sir.
right.
Sometimes I like to have partners there as well, but
Mm-hmm,
your experience with birth is another question.
mm-hmm,
What have you seen? Do you have other children? What was that experience like for you? And then I would say the third big conversation that we have when it comes down to how I support is I'm very honest and I say to them, I'm going to, just like we're sitting here, I'm going to talk to you like a sister friend.
mm-hmm,
As we cross that connection of doula and client, you are now my family. When I
mm-hmm,
meet your mama, I've never met a client's mom that I didn't hug. Hey, mom.
mm-hmm,
Hey,
mm-hmm.
matriarch. Okay, we got
Yes,
generations coming. So it
yes.
becomes that is just what I offer. And I tell
Mm-hmm,
I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. If
mm-hmm,
you sit with me and we talk, we are going to make a connection, or maybe I'm not for you, and that's okay. And the
mm-hmm,
last thing I like to close out with, because you mentioned it was rose-colored glasses, is I said there's going to be parts of this journey that you may not like me, right? Then
mm-hmm,
my job as a doula is to listen to what you tell me you want, and when
mm-hmm,
we hit that wall, oh, because we gonna hit the wall, sister.
mm-hmm,
My job is to help you climb over that wall.
mm,
So when I kind of set us up in that notion that they know it's going to be more of an ebb and flow, I
mm-hmm.
think that there's a little bit more understanding of what the doula's job, at least for me in my capacity, what it's going to be for them.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's so honest. And I think it's honest and true, right? And it's what's needed because if you've ever gone through birth, if you've ever gone through a pregnancy, you're going to hit a few walls. You're gonna hit a few of them. And so to have someone who is going to remind you, right? Remind you of your plan, remind you of what you wanted, right? And it doesn't mean that there's not flexibility. It doesn't mean that the plan can't change. But at the end of the day, we want to get you as close to what you said that you wanted as possible. And so you mentioned something that is extremely important, and I know it's extremely important, especially in the Black and Brown community. It has always been is community, right? We do better in community. And what does that look like when you are working with families? And I guess I have like a twofold question. How do you provide community to those who don't have community, who are kind of going through this journey on their own? And then how do you include people who have a whole host of community who want to come in and be involved in the process, right?
Ooh, that's a good one. Because I always tell my clients, let me be the bad guy. It's fine. You hired me for a reason. So
Yes.
the first one I want to address is the lack of community, because it is so prevalent with our sisters. I mean, everything from single mothers to I have supported many military spouses, right? Who, their husband or their partner might be in Korea. We've done ultrasounds on FaceTime. There's that dimension of it. And also are estranged from parents, estranged from family members. I've had many clients where, they're used to being around family and friends. And now I'm a first-time mom. I am scared. Who's going to help me change diapers? Who's going to help me do these things? And so the first thing I like to give my clients is a resource sheet or resources on paper before we get close to labor. The reason why I do that is because I want you to feel comfortable asking for help. Black women, I love us, but we have a hard time saying I need help. And so a lot of what I found with the lack of community is I've almost had to, and I'm pretty transparent, as y'all could probably tell already, ask specifically, how can I support you? I've done everything from, do we need meals at the baby shower? We're going to get a meal train sign up sheet, right? If you need a mother, again, I've had many moments where we have had healing processes with mom in labor and saying things to me that she just needed to get out for her mother to hear. So there's a lot of that connection. I also have, of course, a team of people here locally. I have clinical psychologists who I'm really close with, some of whom I've actually helped deliver their babies. Reiki, I've gotten certified in that because that's a healing process. I have dropped off meals. I have dropped off diapers. Okay. I am not above any of it. Girl, if you need some diapers, we're about to get you some diapers. I've done diaper trades.
Yes.
Last week, my daughter's daycare teacher, I was like, oh, you're pregnant. Okay, let me get you this. She was like, what are you giving me? It's community, because what I receive, I give back. And so it's also teaching that. I also started a postpartum support group here, and I would you melanin motherhood was something that was spoken to me during COVID. And we have these conversations, and sometimes people they feel like you're just giving them empty words. And so I like to have a space to where we can connect as, birth worker and client, but also have other women. You need a babysitter. Y'all's kids might be the same ages. Y'all get together and we can figure it out. So I think, sister, this is one of the big differences too with women of color getting into this field. Comfort level is because we do feel like we are connected, like we're family. After my clients give birth, it's not like, okay, that's been great. I get to last week, 5-year-old birthday party, 5 years. So it's important for you to just be open, honest when you're in this field.
Yeah. It's so that, I mean, you hit on something that I was going to ask, and that was the integrative approach, right, to the healing in this process, right? no matter how much we can do, we can't do everything. And so being able to have a referral list and being able to work with other like-minded individuals who are doing this work, who see this work as important, and being able to refer out, right? So that our clients that we're serving are getting a holistic wraparound type services, right? Everybody's hugging you, everybody's holding on to you, right? And you are getting the services that you need throughout your journey, through the pregnancy and then after. So one of the things that I find interesting, especially when I'm working with clients, and it's been a while because I'm on a sabbatical, but is some of the different modalities that you introduce to a client that they may not have ever heard or even considered. I think sometimes we think of certain services or certain healing modalities as luxuries, like getting a massage, right, during your pregnancy, going to see a chiropractor, maybe going to see a pelvic floor specialist, going to receive Reiki, energy healing, acupuncture. When we're talking about a client receiving holistic health and service and being in wellness completely, how can we not have other people that we're working with in order to provide these type of services? So is that something that, you let them know? I'm not the end all be all, but I got you in many places, but I'm a link you to other people, and how receptive are they to some of the services that you refer them to?
I absolutely am honest. I will tell you, and I'll give a great example because for years I got discouraged as being a doula because you can really get burnt out,
Mm-hmm.
doing these labors, I think my longest one to date was 72 hours, it's like it can get heavy, especially if you have your own family and your own children. And so I
Mm-hmm.
really prayed, probably I would say year like maybe 4 or 5. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to really do this by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because the clients they're there. And so I prayed and I ended up having a girl come to me who's now in nursing school. So we are working on another whole nother level in capacity. And over the years, I say that to say, you will have those like-minded people that will come across your path as you need them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the doulas who was one of my mentees, I was in a space where I was like, hey, I may have to have a backup. So
Mm-hmm.
how I started that conversation, I set that expectation up before
Mm-hmm.
when we had our consultation. This is what's going on around this time frame. I also had that doula come into the childbirth classes because I require my clients to take my childbirth classes in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so she was able to interact with the client, ask questions. And even though I did not need to use that backup doula, shout out to Melissa,
Mm-hmm.
shout out, she still attended the labor. So that client ended up having two like-minded
Mm.
doulas in the room with her. And that's also, again, how spirit works. But
Yes.
being able to be honest, and I'm not perfect, and I will tell you, the biggest lesson around this was my
Mm-hmm.
first birth. Shatia,
Mm.
my first birth. And I just was ready. I had all my organic oils and I was going to do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we labored for, I think, 40 hours. That was, again, probably like my second longest labor.
Mm-hmm.
And I would
Mm-hmm.
never forget, my client looked at me and she said, Angie, you are fantastic. You are giving me all the things I need to make this work. You are loving, you are caring, you are amazing. But I just don't want to do this naturally anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had all the talks and I said, wow, this is a great lesson for me. There are going
Mm-hmm.
to be things in our capacity or that's outside of our scope. There's going to be things that you run into, whether you are a trained doula or you're just supporting someone. And you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to allow other people to come in. You're going to have
Mm-hmm.
to let those people make those decisions. And that's going to be based on what they feel is best for them. So that's also a lesson that I learned in having those references as well. If I feel like you're having postpartum depression, you can talk to me and you may be comfortable talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
My job is also to make sure that you get what you need. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a very important conversation to have when you're dealing in this scope or you're doing this type of work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think you raised such a great point, which is just because you take the training, just because you have years of experience in the education, you never stop learning, right? You never stop learning, even if it's not through a book. And you have these aha moments, you have these step back moments where you have to step back and look at yourself and be like, oh, I forgot this isn't about me. This is not about me. This is not my birth. This is not my journey. This is not about me. I am showing up the way, like you said, spirit is wanting me to show up in this capacity, and that's the lane that I need to stay in, and make sure that I'm doing what I'm called to do. And so I feel like this is a great segue to get into the juicy stuff, because I want you to just shed a little light, ma'am, please, on how you incorporate, spirituality into your work. You and I have had great conversations. I have done work with you as well. And we share a lot of, some of the same background when it comes to spirituality, the work that we do and how we incorporate it. But this about you. So I want you to just give us a little something about this journey, and just how my friend is a priestess, y'all. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Not right. Well, listen, I'm gonna tell you, this was a lesson that I had to learn when I first started doing this work. And I'm gonna speak to everybody who needs to hear this, because there's somebody listening and you need to hear this. When I started my business, I really tried to separate my birth work and my spiritual walk. And I did that because I felt like I did not want to limit my clients. I was like, oh Lord, if I'm up here talking about spirit, I'm not gonna get no white clients. I ain't gonna get, and I need to make the successful business happen. So what do I do? And I have always been spiritually connected since I was a child, working with energy, seeing things, hearing things, empathizing. I mean, people would give me a piece of paper and say, hey, H8, what do you think about this contract? What? I just had that gift very young. And as I got older, it became more vibrant for me, and dreams and just seeing things and telling people things, and the mediumship really, because I'm an active medium. And so birth work was very it made me kind of nervous, because when you're doing this work, you really are dealing with a lot. You're dealing with a lot of emotions. You're dealing with a lot of trauma. You're dealing with a lot of energy and things that are rooted in that person's mindset from the beginning. You're going back with them. You're kind of traveling back. And so I would say probably around 2014, 15, I really just let it all hang out. In my consultations, you're asking me earlier about what that looks like. There have been consultations where something comes through to me. I will tell you just an example of how I yield to spirit before I do anything. I had a mom come to me and, I've got this. And I looked at her over the screen and I said, it's okay that you feel like you don't want your baby. She started crying. I said, there's a death. There's like a heavy feeling of grief for you. What is this? She said, I just lost my dad. I'm not even in a mindset to even deal with like all of what you're about to tell me about labor. I just don't even want to listen. So in that particular case, we ended up doing a lot more spiritual work, a lot of stripping. I had her do spiritual baths. And, that's kind of how I incorporated. And that's just as an example for her to get her heart connected to her mind, connected to her womb, so we could actually have this baby. So a lot of times when we are dealing just with birth work, we want to walk in the room and just talk about birth. So as my years, if I've become more seasoned and more comfortable just having spirit lead the room, I choose to lead with spirit. If I walk in a room, I've had elders who didn't want to see me there.
Mm.
Why my daughter hired you? Why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
Mama. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay, mother, let's talk. Let's sit. You got some tea
Mm-hmm.
to drink? Wait a minute. We're going, wait. And so that is part of how I use spirituality. Now, my walk, I have been doing readings for years. I do multiple types of readings,
Mm-hmm.
mediumship, tarot, obi. I am an African spiritualist by default. That's who I am. That's what I do. And so specifically, I initiated into Egungun, which is it's a secret society based in Africa, Nigeria, dealing with ancestor veneration. And
Mm-hmm.
understood why. Okay, I'm working with family lines. I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
The most powerful thing you do is bring another soul, another
Mm-hmm.
earthbound. And so because I lead with those conversations, because I'm very honest about my beliefs and what it is. And I've had Buddhists as clients, I've had
Mm-hmm.
Christians as clients, I've had
Mm-hmm.
Catholics. It hasn't seemed to bother anybody because
Mm-hmm.
the thing is universal that they recognize, which is birth is sacred.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, no matter how you frame it, it's sacred. And
Yes.
so it's been a beautiful last couple of years because it's been feeling very freeing for me,
Mm-hmm.
able to help in that capacity, families just generationally. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that so much because, again, I feel like I sound like a broken record in a sense, but everything is so connected. And I think when we are able to really put together mind, body, and spirit in birth, in just our everyday lives, right? Things flow a little bit more naturally. They flow a bit more organically because there's not so much resistance. We're not pushing back so much. We understand that there will be challenges. We understand that there are going to be things that we don't necessarily like. Um, However, we can look back on those things and see how much they have helped us to grow, or we have learned lessons from them. Not all pleasant, but right when we do make it on the other side, it's a whew, I made it. And that's birth within itself. Is too when you get past the head coming out, right?
Yes.
You're almost there, and you're like, whew, okay, it's easy breezy, lemon squeezy after that part, but it's a process that we had to get through to get there. And so I love how you approach birth. I love how you approach your clients, because we need so much more community. We need so much more love. We need so much more support these days, these times that we are in currently, and stuff that's shifting and happening so much in our world. And just to have um, birth workers who are not just doing the birth part, right? Understanding it's so much deeper. It's just so much deeper. What are some other things that you incorporate into your work when you're working with clients?
One thing is big for me is clearing the space.
Mm.
Okay. Energy is key. And I always tell my clients, birth is 90% mental and 10% physical for you.
Mm. Mm.
90%. So if we're walking into a space and a nurse is nasty, y'all just bickering, you hungry, we got so many things coming in. I always got my little juju bag. I bring my crystals, I bring my own diffuser, I bring my sage, and I cleanse that bad boy. They know me that when I come in with a hair wrap at the hospital, like, here she go. I come in and I wipe it clean. I mean it. And the reason for that is because it's like cleansing the palate. You can get stuck really at several different spaces in birth. But if you start in that space, which is why home births are so beautiful. We have so many women who want that because they just want to be comfortable. They just want to feel like they can just be. So there is also a way to create that in hospitals as well. But the space has to be cleansed. I do have my clients, they're not required, well, they are required to have a music playlist. That's like part of their homework.
Okay.
Because I'm a musician, we got to have some types of tunes. It could be birds chirping. We pushed out a baby to heavy metal, y'all. I'm not.
Okay.
So whatever floats your boat, whatever that
Right.
looks like for you, let's do it early. And
Mm-hmm.
let's get a variety of music on the
Mm.
playlist. So that's a big one. Singing, I've sang babies out, so music is a really big key component. Um, Doing a lot of course, the things that we learn in the birth world, a lot of pelvic keps quizzes and the massages and reflexology and all those different things
Mm-hmm.
are very beneficial. That's the bulk of why I'm there, because of
Mm-hmm.
having training in that capacity. But another big one is the chakras and
Mm.
knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses.
Mm.
A questionnaire that I give every client before we start our journey. What's your favorite place to be touched? Which
Mm.
least favorite place to be touched? We dive into that. And that
Mm.
conversation sometimes, sister, leads us to some trauma conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it leads us to, okay, well, let's work on that root chakra. Let's see what we can do there.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, I have the partner do the same thing, believe it or not. I have
Mm.
a partner fill that out. And at the end, we're going to all sit together and we're going to swap and we're going to learn about ourselves and our bodies. And one of the main things that I think and I don't know, again, there's different doulas do different things.
Right, right, right.
My job, I feel, is to help you connect to your body.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that through several different exercises, home, visits that we do, prenatal visits that we do. Before there is there's a sort of way to practice labor, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
for you to get your mind over matter going. And
Mm-hmm.
so all of those things on top of affirmations and prayers, and sometimes my clients choose to do the Reiki,
Mm-hmm.
right before
Mm-hmm.
they're close to labor is a big thing. But there are so many different things that I have done, I will say,
Yeah.
and it really is focused on that mom, what we're looking at in her story,
Mm.
what is her capacity? That's a
Mm.
big one. What is it
Mm-hmm.
wants? And there's been some women that I've had to say, okay, now wait a minute. Now you want a natural birth and you're not drinking. Where's your water bottle? You ain't drinking.
Right.
And I will talk to you like that. Yes, I
Yes.
will. What,
Yes.
sister? Why are we sipping on a Diet Coke, sis?
Yes.
Injection. But we need,
Yes.
we need
Yes.
there. And so
Yes.
there are expectations. You can't
Mm-hmm.
come to me and say, I want to have an all natural birth because you saw it on YouTube and you don't want to put that work in. And
Yes.
so that's a big portion of it too. I love to give homework. Shout out
Mm-hmm.
to clients, attendees. They know I
Yes.
love a good homework assignment because it
Mm-hmm.
keeps you on your path.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps you.
Yes. Yes, yes, that engagement. You said two, well, the first thing for sure is really tapping into your body, really, really dropping in, which is something that's being talked about more and more. So, that somatic experience, in really feeling what you feel in your body. You don't know how disconnected you are to your body until somebody actually tells you to tap in and
Mhm.
asks you what it is you're feeling in your body. And that's an intent, that is something that you have to do intentionally. You
Yeah.
have to be intentional about sitting down and dropping in to feel what's happening in your body. And so that's so important. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And that's something that you work on and talk to your clients about, because so many people just disassociate, because it does bring up a lot. It does, I have to stop thinking and really, and no, that's too much. That's you're making me too vulnerable,
Yeah.
right? And so, but birth is vulnerable. The journey is vulnerable. Your spiritual walk requires a level of vulnerability as well for you
Ooh,
to it both, if we're looking at it, somebody, it involves stripping of something. It's pulling back the layers, whether it's in pregnancy, whether it's on your spiritual walk. You have to shed, you got to take the mask off, you got to shed all of the layers, you're pulling back, stuff is coming up. And so when like us just talking it out, it's like you can see the parallel of the two, right? You can see them side by side. So, oh my goodness, it's such rich conversation. And so I think that is extremely important in having families understand that process and just the connection between the mind, the body, and the spirit. And one affects the other. They're not separate. Got to do this thing together.
Yeah. And that's a big one for you to explain to everyone who's going to be in the room.
Yeah.
When a woman is in labor, she evolves. Her body evolves, her spirit evolves, and her mind and her heart. She's in another person. My favorite things to tell, especially dads, because they're stoic, they just there. I said, look at her, look at your queen, look at her. She will never be the same person you knew before she goes through this process. And I plant that seed because of what you're talking about, what you just mentioned. So you're going to watch her hit a wall. You're going to watch her be the strongest version of herself in this moment. And it's important for you to know how to maneuver that. I've had dads, we had to sit down. We don't want you passing out. They get stressed out. I've had dads get very angry, and so it depends on what that conversation has been before. You have to prepare mom, but you also have to prepare grandma, mom, or whoever this woman chooses she's going to have in her space, because we all have to be on one accord. There's that spiritual connection, right? Hey, but two or more gathered, we can't have, look, sister gonna do this thing. And I will tell you, there's been so many times, especially moms, bless their heart, moms of daughters in labor. That is big, because to see their little girl crunched over, and I always go to mom and said, look at this strong person that you created. Look at what you did. Let's look at that thing. We're a baby. We're doing some things here. Be proud of her. Go hug her and tell her in that moment, I'm so proud of you. I've had a mom tell a client one time, and I loved how she said it. She said, I never thought that I would have created a person who was so much more stronger than me. And if that don't tell you, and we had that baby too, that 9-pound baby. She did that thing.
Yes, chunky.
So it was amazing. And so it's important for everybody to have the same language.
Yeah.
Your words are what they say, spelling, their spells.
Their spells.
You say things in that labor room, when you're saying things to each other, even mom can get negative, And if you are a pregnant woman, listen to this meeting. Watch your words, my sister. And you're going through your journey, you're going to have disappointments. I'm telling you, every labor, every childbirth situation is different. But watch your words. Even if you feel disappointed, say to yourself, I'm grateful. I'm grateful I made it 5 months. Yes, ring the bell. Always get yourself back to just that gratefulness space. And that's going to help you maneuver everything else.
I love it. So what's next? What's next for you?
Ooh, child. I was told by my godfather in my spiritual world that I will be walking into midwifery. That is something that is required of me. That comes from my ancestors. They were women who delivered. They were women who helped other women and cultivated family. And so I do see that for myself. I do have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, and their birth stories were also amazing. So of course, them at home as well. But I am going that route of saying, all right, it's time. Let me just go ahead and catch them. I've done everything else. I might as well just catch them. So that is in the cards for me. I have also implemented a lot of music. Spirit spoke to me a couple of, actually earlier this year, and my degree is in music, and I've been playing music since I was 4. And they always say, you're always good at separating things. You just like to categorize things and don't like your food to touch. And we want you to be able to implement that more. So toddler music classes I've done some this year, with Asabi, and it's been beautiful to watch these little.
Why aren't we closer? Why aren't we closer?
Toddler music, guys, get into it. It's a thing, and not many people have the calling and the patience for it, and I see it as an extension, right, of that birth and the evolution process. So toddler music classes on Saturdays, and then also something that I started, which is called mindful music. I will tell you, when I had this concept, y'all, I was not expecting it to be such a healing experience. My youngest person there was one of my clients that delivered. She brought the baby back. So my youngest was 1, and my eldest there, I think, was 67 or 70. We had African drumming, we had poetry, we cried, we laughed, we engaged on a I want to say it was such an organic spiritual connection that was just, I still have people texting me like, when's the next one? Like, we're ready. We're ready. And so it was big for me to be able to implement the kids there as well. So we had a circle, and the kids started, they ushered us in, they ushered us in. And so doing a lot of musical therapy type things, even within birth. Of course, I'll always have my childbirth education classes. And still call me to pick up y'all placenta if you want me to do a little package and some prints for you. That's there. But this year is just a lot of, like, 2025 is like the year of expression. Like, there's so much that a lot of us have been holding in, so many shades of us. And so, this next year is going to be a lot of expression through music, and continuing always to do the work of education, always.
Yes. Any book recommendations, movie recommendations, any courses, podcasts, anything that you would recommend to a family?
I wish I had my camera on the other side of this wall, because I have a library of books, and I don't want to get up to get the books, but this is what I say about literature. I always tell people to be careful what they read. And I mean that because we are a human, we're very easily fearful. So what I usually do when it comes to that, a lot of my clients will ask to borrow my books, or something from my library. And based on what they want for their birth is what I kind of recommend. We recently lost the Miss Gaskin, and the other elder, I forgot her name. Penny Simpkins, too, just transitioned. And I would tell you, I have been doing a lot less reading of the elder generation, and also getting into a lot of indigenous reading when it comes to work, a lot of Native American traditions, digging deep, and actually contacting these people. Hey, reaching out, is there something that I can do? But a whole lot of media, I'm not really a person who watches a whole lot of movies per se, because I'm that because I stay busy. But when it comes to books, I say pray about it. I'm one of them people that touch a book. I'm not gonna lie, I touch, like, do I need to get this? What is in this book to help you? I've done a lot of I do recommend my clients have a chakra book, or a book that teaches them about their bodies, because that's what we're focusing on. Not childbirth. Because you could get a book 15 ways to breathe, and you're gonna breathe 2 ways. When them contractions start popping.
You're not gonna remember them other 13 ways.
I'm saying, so I do like to keep it simple. I do I use a lot of visual aids, a lot of colors, and things when I'm teaching. So I'm like a very old school traditional person when it comes to that. But having a book of chakras, so you can look and physically see what's having them look and see what are some of the positions I'm about to put you in so you don't be nervous. We practice those things as well. So
Right.
whatever you are led to. And if you have questions, I always have my clients ask me or come to me and ask me, is this something you recommend or not, as far as if it pertains specifically to childbirth.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, before we close out, I have two more questions.
Yeah.
And the first question is, with everything that you know now, everything that you have experienced, this journey that you are on, and you continue to go down this path, and clearly you're going down the midwifery path, ma'am. What would you tell your younger self?
Good question. The first thing I would say is take care of yourself.
Mm.
Pour into yourself. Living a life of servitude is important, but it's important for you to refill your cup often. And what does that look like? Looks different for different people, whether you have kids or not. You know what that is. And if you don't know what it is, you need to sit down and make a plan. That is. So that's one of the things I would have told myself younger, before even having kids, because I was a doula well before I was a mom. The second thing I would say is give yourself grace. A lot of times when we enter into things that are new, we want to be the best. We want to be excellent. We want to drive at home, especially as Black women. We are the queen mothers. We do everything well. And so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We really do, to do the best. And there's a beauty to that.
Yeah.
There's a fierceness in that. There's a warrior energy and spirit that's in that. But those moments too, where we need to step back and give grace. And I think that is definitely the thing number 2. And number 3 is to take your time. Trust the timing. People always say trust the process. Yes. Trust the divine timing. Trust that when you have to take a sabbatical, you got to take one for a reason. That when you have to move cross country because, I don't know, the ceiling fell in, there's a purpose. We always get so hard on ourselves about knowing the next step. And honestly, we're not driving the car. So being able to just trust the divine timing of where you're going to end up. Those 3 things for sure.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. And lastly, what are your socials? What is your contact information? How can people find you, to support you, to work with you, to learn from you, whatever it is, whatever their thing is? How can they find you?
Yeah. So again, music, birth, spirit. You guys can contact me about those 3 things anytime. My website is www.asabiarts.com. Email is angie@asabiarts.com. TikTok, the children told me I needed to get a TikTok. So TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook is Asabi Arts as well. So it's all going to be under that for you. And yeah, reach out. I would love to hear, even if you just want to tell me your birth stories, because I just, bravo, I just love to hear people's experiences going through the process.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, sis, for being here today. And I got to love on you and talk to you and vibe with you today. It's always an honor. So I honor and appreciate you so, so much. And of course, we'll have to do this again.
Oh, for sure. Thank you for the space that you hold for us. Thank you. I really enjoyed myself.
Absolutely. All right, guys. This is it for today. Bye.